Hello there, guys, and welcome back to Bright Founders Talk from Temi, an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Today, guys, you can see we've got a new guest with us, Martin Sandhu, the founder of Nuom. Martin, thank you for coming on. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on, Martin. First of all, I hear a British accent. I'm British myself. I live in Ukraine. Tell us, where are you from? Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Sure. So I'm from Nottingham. For people who don't know where that is, Manchester, pretty much everyone knows where that is. London, and it's bang in the middle, basically. Born and bred, never left. Business grew here, but yeah, it's in the middle of the UK.
Nice. Okay. Martin, what I'd like to do before we get started, there's a question I always start with, a question I always finish with. Question I start with is to get to know a little bit about the person behind the machine a little bit more. So, what is the one thing which is quite important to you, to who you are, which not many people know about you?
Wow, that's a good question. That's pretty deep to start as well.
Mhm. Straight in there.
What do people not know about me? Okay, so I was an only child for a long time until my brother came around when I was 16. So I've kind of
Oh, wow.
always been on myself. And the business that I have is I built with myself without any sort of co-founders.
Hmm.
So I guess that might be something that a lot of people don't know about me because they think there's this a big machine, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on because that's the mentality I've had to do a lot since a very early age. Much come from a hustler background, like come from a working class family. If I wanted something, you had to go and figure it out one way or another, earn it, work it. So I've had that hustler mentality. That's how the business has grown originally. And as you go through life, I mean, I'm 41 now. I've got a family. You kind of lose that as well, and then you find it again. So I've always almost been a bit of a workaholic, and I know that's probably not a thing a lot of people like to say, but some people just like doing what they do. I don't see it as work, so maybe I'm
Yeah.
not a workaholic. But yeah, that's kind of something I guess someone probably wouldn't know about me.
Like a part of your life, I guess, as well. Because I mean, work is a huge part of our life. Is that kind of thing then, talking about that, do you not have a work-life balance? Do you not believe in work-life balance?
Yes, when the time is right, I think when mentally you know the time is right. I think the one thing I've worked on a lot over the last 15 years, and I've been doing this as for myself for 15 years now, working as building a business and starting from a freelance and building it out, is to just read your body, just to read your mind and just know when the time is to check out. And I've gone through those periods when I just went over the edge and I've just have burnt out. But I'm at a stage in life now where I just have these ways to just sort of get away from the office, and that might be like my working pattern is 5, 6 o'clock in the morning until like 1 o'clock. So I'm kind of you know
Oh, well.
clocking out now, and then the
Mhm.
afternoon I'm pretty much useless. And I've kind of learned over the time that how my body and my mind works best. Creativity in the morning, admins at midday, and then maybe in the evenings I'll do an hour or 2 hours where suddenly my mind's just a little bit more relaxed and refreshed. And I think it's just I've learned to just read and just work with my mind and the body that I have, and just I don't feel that I need a work-life balance. I feel that I have one. Like I said, a lot of the stuff I do I really enjoy. I love it. I don't see it as work. For me, it's utilizing sort of unlocking sort of ideas and creativity and whether that's in go-to-market strategies or whether that's helping some of the founders that I work with, or whether that's trying to communicate some sort of creative idea to a C-suite level. My mind is on fire 24/7.
I don't know if that's nice or good, good, bad. Or, you have to find the middle of it between the.
I tell you the most dangerous time. The most dangerous time for me is when I have time, as in I'm literally sat down, relaxed, because that's the time when I have no distractions and I have ideas. So beauty of this, I can sit on a beach on a sunbed and I can just basically write down notes, write down ideas. And I've learned over time to delegate. That was a very hard thing to do for a while. But now I delegate using my phone, which is amazing.
Mm, absolutely, and you can do it on the beach as well if you are. Tell
Yeah.
me, Martin, with regards to, you said you do get up quite early and start your day quite early. Is this kind of like a 5 a.m. start? And what is the first thing you do when you get up?
First thing I do, tend to might just naturally wake up at 6, even if I yeah, just naturally wake up at 6. Just having kids now, body just makes me wake up at that time.
Hmm.
The first thing I tend to do is try and not look at my phone because that's, for at least for 10, 15 minutes. I try and read. So that could be a little bit of a book.
Oh wow.
It
Hmm.
could be a newspaper or something like that. It could
Hmm.
be a newspaper article, to be honest. But that means I have to get a digital device. But I try not to check my emails, try not to check my socials, drink some water, then I'll have a cup of coffee, and then I'll start to look at my phone, and I just feel like I've woken up. Try and get my body and my mind to wake up. That's the first process. I'm not one of these people that go to the gym in the morning. I don't like that. I like to go to the gym in the afternoon, sort of before early evening. And that is a release for me as well. That's a big thing that I've learned over time. Exercise, and that could be just anything really, just getting out and about. But for me, I love powerlifting and lifting weights. It's been a
Oh,
thing that I've
nice.
enjoyed for quite a while.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my day.
I see
That's
the
my
gym
morning.
side t-shirt, so I definitely knew you were a gym go for sure. Martin, tell me a little bit more about that morning. So obviously you've got your routine there, but what is the more kind of philosophical reason for you getting up every morning? Have you got like a goal that you were trying to achieve, like a legacy in your life? What is your reason? What gets you up?
For me, what I originally, if you talk about sort of a big goal, well, I'm 41 now. But in your 20s, you get your first job and you want everything shiny, right? You want all the new stuff. You want nice clothes. You want everything. You get to sort of your 30s and you're thinking about investments in terms of house and your family and stuff like that. When you get past that stage, you get into your 40s, you're kind of like, okay, well, I've kind of ticked that box. I've ticked that box. What's next? And you realize there's only 20 years left until, you start to tap at the door. So
Hmm.
my goals now is when I was 40, I wrote down my things that I wanted life to be like when I was 60. And it seems quite far away, but it does soon, obviously, it'll soon creep up on you. And I wrote down a number of things. They're the typical things. You want your kids to be healthy, you want them to be successful, etc. But the stuff I wrote wasn't money orientated. It was more lifestyle orientated.
Uh-huh.
Health and well-being, obviously, longevity, flexibility, in terms of lifestyle and physically, as well. But more importantly, it was just to be able to. I mean, my number one goal was very simple. It was to basically walk out in the morning, surrounded by green, green, and green, with a cup of coffee. And that's the first thing I would do, with no shoes on, feet on the earth, grounded, downloaded from the sun.
Hmm.
Those kind of spiritual, I guess, but it's the number one thing I want to aim for. Now that might be just in the garden where I am, or it might be in a big mansion. It's the journey to get there and just basically having the freedom to do what I want to do, not being locked down into the system, which you kind of, as soon as you come out of school, that's kind of what they do, is they want you lock you down into the system. You're a tax number essentially. So my goal is to, I guess, break away from the system, and I kind of have. Don't get me wrong, I still need to go out and we still need to earn money because unfortunately you can't do what you want to do without it. But it isn't the number one priority and driver. It's flexibility, family, etc.
Tell me more about that. So you were talking there obviously about the more spiritual side of it. Is kind of how do you find that spiritual side? I mean, in regards to in the world of technology now, working on technology constantly, how do you kind of disconnect from it in order to find that kind of spirituality part of it? You know, that kind of the quiet between the two. Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you got 24 hours in a day. You can spend 15 minutes sitting in silence or just meditating. Or, I mean, I don't do it as much as I used to, but I mean, just having, we need to have a break from the computers. I'm like just as guilty when I'm in the zone. Everyone's in the zone. It's like I'm on my iMac. I walk downstairs. I make a tea. I can guarantee I'll be on my phone within 20 seconds.
So
All
true,
right.
yeah.
You go out in the car. You look at your phone. Put your car down. Just go for a drive. You pick your phone up. You're looking at it, right?
Mhm.
So it's just trying to find that time away. And spirituality doesn't mean like you need to obviously believe in God, etc., etc., right? It's just like having that moment away. Mindfulness is something that obviously a lot of people discover. A lot of people discover it's actually just, I think the trick is just to be consistent with that as well. I'm just as guilty as not being with it on consistency, but I do know that it does help. It helps with just life prioritization. We're busy people, but it helps us to prioritize those moments of reflection and thinking, making good decisions. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I've done, and you probably reminded me that I just need to do it a little bit more as well.
And me as well, by the way, and me as well. Martin, let's speak about more what you're doing at Nuom. So, just for the audience as well, could you tell me in a few words what is it you're doing, what is your mission, and why you set out this mission almost 15 years ago, I believe?
Well, it was different 15 years ago from what we set out. What it is now is we're a digital health transformation agency. So we design and build healthcare systems, processes, solutions. And digital is just one part of that. We like to look at the overall problem and the overall sort of delivery of how the patient's going to come into that service, what technology they're going to interact with, what offline services they're going to interact with, and how we can make sure that that patient, when they come in, comes out of that service with a positive outcome or with a level of outcome, and then more importantly, they're engaged throughout. And then also, we want to make sure that they're not a burden on frontline healthcare services, so they can be more preventative to start with.
Hmm.
We can use potentially machine learning to be more predictive to stop them once again be more less in terms of being preventative and personalized as well. Everybody's different, populations are different, people are different, so allowing them to like self-manage more personalized service. We map all of this out and then we look at where digital solutions can fit in. So very much consultative. We design these, we prototype, we test them with patients, with relevant stakeholders, healthcare professionals, and then we build the solutions as well. So we've been doing that for 15 years. We very much were a development agency to start with. I was an ex-engineer, not a very good one. I've very much been a product person, figuring out how we can create something to solve a problem. And that's what I'm interested in now. But utilizing design thinking, figuring out, doing primary research and figuring out some ideas to help solve healthcare problems. And that's where we are at the moment.
Martin, tell me, where did this idea come from? Was it kind of any time that I speak to an entrepreneur, a lot of the time, not any time, but a lot of the time, it comes out of necessity for themselves, and it's something which wasn't around, and they thought, okay, if it's not around, I'll build it myself. Was it kind of a personal kind of journey, or was it just something that you noticed?
A little bit of both. So I'm very good at spotting opportunities. I'm very good at making money, spotting opportunities. That's kind of my core skill. So around 2007, iPhone came out. A couple of years later, apps started becoming more popular. Around 2010, 2011, we started developing mobile apps. And where we are in the UK, no one outside of London was really making or developing them. So we built a studio that made mobile apps. I noticed a trend inside the NHS to go digital from paper to just essentially anything computer, mobile phone applications. And I decided to just concentrate on that area. At the same time, I was very burnt out, I guess, from setting up the business. We scaled quite quickly. And I just started to look into health and fitness, being a bit more aware of my body. We spoke about it earlier. Mental health as well. I started to look and read about that. And it kind of all kind of combined into this. Actually, we should look at healthcare. We should look at mental health. We should look at people who are struggling with certain conditions as well. And it kind of all just came together then. In that early stage, we just rode the wave and we went from 3 people to like 60 people. But we built a business that, we'll say we built a business, we bootstrapped a business and we hustled a business up to 60 people, but without process, senior leadership team. So at some point it was going to crash, right? And that was the first big learning. We went super crazy. We were making loads of cash, but we were just riding out, and eventually that kind of first wave burnt out. We learned from that, and then we kind of obviously put all the infrastructure in place and decided to go again. And then 2020, let's just fast forward a little bit. COVID happened, and every man and his dog decided that they wanted to build a mental health platform because everybody was working from home. So we were just in the right space, right time. We'd had all this experience with working with the NHS, creating mental health platforms and solutions, working with clinical and pharma. And then we went again, and that's kind of where we've been going recently. Just continuing growing basically based on all of that work. So yeah, it's just spotting the opportunity. That's the key.
Martin, you said there about obviously the going too fast, which is a problem for actually many founders on this podcast as well. We've had many people say the same thing about going too fast and having to suffer the consequences after, and the stress and the difficulty of the human cost as well at the end of it. What you said that you've learned from it. What kind of advice can you give to other perhaps people about to start up now in terms of not growing so fast? Why is it still a mistake which so many companies make?
I think people just get excited, don't they? We live in a world now where everybody just wants something instantly. If you do, you can. You can get a credit card, you can buy something. If you want a telly, you have to buy it. You can just get it instantly. So we live in this, like, we want instant. You see it with the people who are raising capital and then they just burn it out. There is something to say about building a business the old school way, whether it's trying to generate revenue anyway, bootstrapping it and just building it organically, and taking the time, because over that period of time, you will learn a lot, whether your offer more than likely will be different in a year's time, 2 years' time. You'll spot other opportunities instead of just rushing to get this one big thing and kind of having this big launch and doing, burning a lot of cash. I think there's a big thing in taking your time and doing that. And I think that's why we've been successful and we're very stable now, is because we've not had any investment. We've just built a business based on just, old school. Let's just generate revenue and grow it, 10, 15% at the beginning, 20% now, year on year. And let's just make the right bets. And that's the second sort of tip, is try and validate what you're going to invest in or do next. I lost quite a lot of cash by using assumptions, basing on assumptions, ideas, just like, okay, I think this is a great idea. We've done it in this market. It's going to work in this market. But I should have really validated that and figured it out, done the research, maybe even tested it with something very more cost effective and cheaper before trying to do this big launch. So that's another thing. And the third and final thing is just hire people that are smarter than you. And I know that's difficult when you start, but it's not difficult when you've got cash in the bank. So like reinvest that into people that just make you feel stupid. And that's what I try and do now, is I hire people that, I'll sit on a call and they'll be talking about something and I'll come up with an idea and everybody looks at me like, what? And I'm like, okay, this works. I feel comfortable with this. I feel like an idiot.
Tell me, in terms of, first of all, where did the name come from for Nuoms? Quite a original name.
We originally were called Roller. We talked about the business where it scaled like super crazy. It scaled and it became very toxic as well. The culture became very toxic. I just had a very negative attachment to the name and the brand, because that reminded me of the tech where we'd been. And this was around 2018. We went through a brand sprint basically to look at where we were going, what the name would be, but more importantly, to align me and the business. Because when I started it, I was 24. I could work 24 hours a day. I had no commitments. And, fast forward a few years later, I'm in my 30s. I'm married, kids, lifestyle's slightly different.
Change. Mm-hmm.
So I needed some alignment. And that was why we did a brand exercise to figure out what that would be, where we wanted to go, who we wanted to work with. And one of the negative things we found from that was that I just had a negative attachment to the brand Roller. So we just thought, let's have a fresh start. The name, there is a brand book, which I don't really use, but basically the name came from one of the employees, actually. I wasn't involved in the branding. I just went, you guys go away and create this. I'm not a branding person. I have no real I'm attached to the business now. I'm attached to the direction what we're going. So we were looking at helping people scale mountains, essentially, taking them from the bottom to the top. And Nuom, if you put it the other way around, is the first part of mountain. And that's essentially where it came from.
Uh-huh. Cool. I always think it's really important to know the story behind the name, just because it tells a little bit more about the company as well. Tell me, in regards to this, obviously, digital health is now a rapidly evolving field, but what are kind of some of the key trends and challenges that you see in the future in the industry, and how is Nuom kind of coped and positioned to address them?
I think the challenge is, the trends are obviously the standard ones, right? Everyone's all talking about AI, generative AI. I think the issues with that is the data sets that they are using that data from still has quite a bias towards them. So I think that's a challenge that will need to be looked at. I also think people are getting excited by the technology. a bit like they did with VR, metaverse not long ago. I mean, it's not that long ago. Not crypto, sorry. What was the images that people were selling? I forgot what it's called now.
I know I've forgotten it as well. But I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure this
Um,
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so everyone was getting excited by those, and then in the metaverse, everyone was buying land. So people get excited by the technology. I think what we're really good at and what I'm really focusing in on is, does that technology is it needed for that particular issue, problem, and how is it going to be interpreted by the people that are going to be using it? So, for example, AI, we know that it's going to help. We know that it's going to be useful. We know that we can we know we can get really good data sets from the healthcare services, but it's the healthcare professionals and the clinicians that have to use it. And for most of their life, they never had that there. And, there is, do they trust it? Do they think it's going to replace their jobs? Like, there's all this kind of stuff that we need to focus on. That's why actually it's not just adopting technology, but it's how technology fits into this overall system that I've talked about previously. That's where I think the challenges are, and that's where I think we are well positioned to help.
Nice. NFTs, I think we were talking about NFT.
NFTs, that's it. Never brought one. I never brought crypto, never brought NFT. I probably should have brought crypto, definitely.
Tell me a little bit more about your challenges. What has been one of the biggest challenge over the 14 years, 15 years? Obviously, the world has changed in many ways, even healthcare and how things are done. What has been the biggest change that you have noticed over these 15 years in your journey? Biggest challenge?
Oh, biggest challenge. I mean, the biggest challenge, I guess, has been it's just scaling, really. It's like that's the big challenge, isn't it? It's how you go from, a freelance business to like a business that turns, a couple of employees, 500 grand, and then you go like you hit over 1 million, and you're like, okay, well, that's good. And then you're trying to now get from like 1 million to 2 million, and actually there's a lot more bodies and people and infrastructure that you need, and it's the realization that to to keep growing, if you want to keep growing in numbers, the profit margin just gets thinner and thinner and thinner. So I guess the challenge is just maintaining a decent profit margin as you scale. And once again, that just comes down to being savvy with the accounts, making sure you validate stuff before investment. So, for example, we need somebody in marketing. We look at what that particular role needs to be. We don't just go and hire that person. We'll go and obviously contract that out, see how that process works, build a process. That's more importantly. So it's a repeatable process. So it's not reliant on a single person, and then find that particular body to execute that process. Um, so things like that, really, it's just being smart with your time and your cash.
More of a personal question here now, and this will be our last question for the podcast today. And I want to know a classic question, but it's always really interesting to get to know you a little bit more and your mindset. If you were able to sit around the table with three kind of experts, who would they be and why?
Very good with these questions. Let's have a think. Who experts? I mean, I guess I look up to. I like Richard Branson. I like
Mm.
Alan Sugar. I like Alan Sugar in particular because he's just that old school mentality. And I grew up working. I learned a lot from people with old school working mentality.
And does that still work nowadays, the old school mentality?
I think it works for my generation. I don't think it works for the younger generation.
Interesting.
I think there's a lost art there as well. I wrote a post about that on LinkedIn actually, that there's a lost art of the ability to sell. I grew up on the shop floor and I learned how to sell and speak to people. If I didn't do things right, I got a rollicking, an old school rollicking basically. I, but I took that on as constructive criticism, I guess. And I'm a better person today for that.
Mm.
So there is. I think generationally, there's different ways you can look at a working. But like I said, that's the generation I came from, and I think it's put me in a good position. I'm in a position now where I never thought I'd ever be, if I'm being honest. When I was a kid, I just know how to speak to people from different backgrounds, and that's come from that shop floor mentality, basically being there, look at the art of selling, the art of speaking to people, which I think is a lost becoming more of a lost this connection and actually the ability to communicate. It's just become a lost art.
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, even doing these kind of our interviews and our podcasts, completely different thing to sit in front of someone in person than it is to sit in front of a computer and take these kind of conversations as well.
Of course it is.
Um,
Yeah, 100%.
so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
completely agree with you. And the last thing before we leave, what would you want the kind of parting thought for our listeners today to know about Nuom?
What's the passing thoughts to know about Nuom? I would say we're on a mission to essentially reduce the burden on frontline health services. And the way that we're looking at doing that is by creating healthcare systems and solutions that fit into those systems that allow you to self-manage, more importantly, preventative and, essentially not be a burden on the frontline, on the healthcare services, and improve overall your health and well-being. Because a healthy population is a population that pays more tax, the economy grows, everybody's happy, right? That's what we're here for.
Perfect. Martin Sandhu, founder of Nuom. Martin, thank you for your time today and thank you for letting me pick your brain as well.
No worries. Thanks for having me.